Fior Furlan from Cividale in Austria, son of the late Sir Benedetto, of the noble house of the Liberi from Premariaco in the diocese of the Patriarchy of Aquileia, in his youth wished to understand armoured combat and the art of combat in the lists with the lance, axe, sword and dagger, and wrestling on foot and on horseback, in armour and without armour. Also he wished to know the temper of irons, and skill at any weapon, as much to defend as to attack, and especially things to do with combat to the death. Also other marvellous and secret things which are known to few men in the world, and they are very true things of maximum offence and great defence, and things that cannot fail because they are so easy to do. This art and mastery that is spoken of above. And the said Fiore did learn the said things from many German masters and from many Italians, in many provinces and in many cities, with the greatest effort and with great expense. And by the grace of God from so many masters and scholars, and in the courts of great lords, princes, dukes, marquises and counts, knights and squires, just to learn this art. That the said Fiore has been more and more times requested by many lords, knights and squires to teach the said Fiore, who does the art of armed combat and of combat in the lists to the death, the which art he has shown to many Italians and Germans and other great lords that have had to fight in the lists, and also to countless others who have not had to fight, and of some who have been my scholars that have had to fight in the lists. Of these some I will name and remember here. First of them is the noble and strong knight Sir Piero del Verde, who had to fight with Sir Piero della Corona, in which both were German, and the combat had to be at Perugia. Also the valiant German knight Sir Niccolo Rizzolino, that had to fight with Niccolo the English. The field was held at Imola. Also the notable, valiant and strong knight Sir Galeazzo di Captani of Grimello, called da Mantua, who had to fight with the valiant knight Sir Busico of France. The field was at Padua. Also the valiant squire Lancelotto of Beccaria from Pavia, the which had 6 thrusts of the sharp-tipped lance on horseback against the valiant knight Sir Baldassaro the German, who at Imola had to fight in the lists. Also the valiant squire Zoanino of Baio from Milan, who made in Pavia in the castle against the bold squire Sram the German 3 thrusts of the sharp-tipped lance on horseback, and then made on foot 3 blows of the axe, and 3 blows of the sword, and 3 blows of the dagger, in the presence of the most noble prince and lord the Duke of Milan, and my lady the Duchess, and of innumerable other lords and ladies. Also the cautious knight Sir Azzo da Castelbarco, that one time had to fight with Zuane di Ordelaffi, and one other time with the bold and good knight Sir Giacomo da Boson, and the field had to be at the pleasure of the Lord Duke of Milan. Of these and of others of whom I, Fiore, was their teacher, I am very happy because I have been well paid and have had the honour and love of my scholars and of their families. I say again that these arts I have shown often in secret, so that only the scholar and some discreet members of their family are present. And if any others are there by grace or courtesy, with a sacred promise they swear to not show any play they have seen from me, Fiore the master. And especially I have been careful of fencing masters and their scholars, and they through envy, thus these masters have challenged me to play with swords with sharp edges and points, in an arming jacket and without other armour except a pair of chamois gloves. And all this has been because I did not want to practice with them, nor have wanted to teach them anything of my art. And it has occurred 5 times that I have been so required, and 5 times by my honour I have met to play in foreign places without family and without my friends, having no hope in others except in God, in the art, and in myself Fiore, and in my sword. And by the grace of God I, Fiore, have remained with honour and without injury in my body. Also I, Fiore, tell my scholars that have to fight in the lists that the combat in the lists is so much less dangerous than the fight with swords of sharp edges and points in an arming jacket, because for those that play with sharp swords, a single parry that fails, that blow gives death. And one that fights in the lists is well armoured and can receive many blows thus, and can also win the fight. Also there is another thing, that it is very unusual that anyone dies, because they are taken for ransom. This is why I say I would rather fight 3 times in the lists than 1 single time with sharp swords, as I said above. And so I say that the man who fights in the lists, being well armoured and knowing the art of combat, and the advantages that he can grab, if he is not bold, he could just as well hang himself. But I can say by the grace of God that not one of my scholars has been lost in this art, and in it have always kept their honour. Also I say that I, the aforesaid Fiore, that these lords, knights, and squires to whom I have shown this art of combat have been happy with my teaching, not wanting anyone other than me for their teacher. Also I say that not one of my scholars, especially the ones named above, have had any books on the art of combat, other than Sir Galeazzo da Mantua, who avers that without books none can ever become a good master nor scholar in this art. And I, Fiore, confirm this as true, that this art is so long that no man has so great a memory that he could hold in mind without books a quarter of this art. And even with that quarter of this art, without knowing more, could not be a master. That I, Fiore, knowing how to read, and write, and draw, and having books on this art, and having read and studied well for 40 years or more, even so I am not a complete master in this art, though I have been held by great lords that have been my students as a good and complete master in the aforesaid art. And if I say that I have studied 40 years in law, in canon law, and in medicine, as I have studied in the art of arms, I would have been a doctor in these 3 subjects. And in this subject of the art of arms I have taken great pains, effort, and expense to be a good scholar. Let's talk about something else. I, the aforesaid Fiore, considering that in this art there are few masters to be found in the world, and wishing to be remembered in it, I am making a book about the whole art, and about all the things in it, and of iron, and of temper, and of the other things, by order of the one that has given the high lord that is above the others by his martial virtue, who pleases me the most, and who most deserves this my book, by his nobility, greater than that of the other lords I have seen or will see. Thus, my illustrious and exalted lord, the potent prince, Sir Niccolo, Marquis of Este, lord of the noble city of Ferrara, of Modena, Reggio, Parma, etc., and whom God give a good life and prosperous fortunes with victory over his enemies. Amen. Beginning the book according to the instruction of my Lord Marquis, and making it so that nothing in the art is left out, that I will make sure that my Lord will be pleased with me through his great nobility and courtesy. And we begin with wrestling, the which is of 2 kinds, thus of leisure and of anger, thus for your life with every trick and deception and cruelty that you can do. And of that which is done for your life I wish to speak and show with reason, and especially to gain the grips as are used when in a fight for your life. The man who wants to wrestle must be familiar with the one they will wrestle, if the companion is stronger, or is bigger in their body, or is too young or too old. Also see if he places himself in the guards of wrestling, and all these things are to be seen in advance. And nothing less than always put on, whether stronger or less strong, at the grips of the binds, and always defend yourself from the grips of his counter. And if your enemy is unarmoured, pay attention to strike in the places more painful and more dangerous, thus in the eyes, in the nose, in the temples, under the chin, and in the flanks. And nothing less watch that you can come to the grips from the binds, whether armoured or unarmoured, that you can do one and the other. Also I say that wrestling wants to have 8 things, thus: strength, speed, knowledge of advantageous grips, knowledge of how to make breaks, thus breaking arms and legs, knowledge of binds, thus binding the arms in such a way that the man cannot defend himself nor can he gain his freedom, knowledge of striking in the places most dangerous, also knowledge of putting one on the ground without danger to himself, also knowledge of dislocating arms and legs in various ways. I will write about all these things and will show them in this book step by step as the art requires. We have spoken about what wrestling requires, now let's discuss the guards of wrestling. The guards of wrestling can be done in various ways, and one is better than the other. But these 4 guards are the best in armour and out of armour. I advise you that the guards are not stable, because of the grips that they immediately do. And the first 4 masters that you will see with crowns on their heads, by these are shown the guards of wrestling, thus long guard and boar's tooth, the which are done one against the other, And then are the iron door and frontal guard, one against the other. And these 4 guards can do all the things that are said before about wrestling, in armor and out of armor, thus grips and binds and breaks, etc. We must do it this way, that the guards are distinguished from the masters, players, and the scholars from the players, and the players from the masters, and the remedy from the counter. Always the counter is placed after the remedy, and sometimes after the remedy or after all of its plays, and this we will make clear. We see that to know the guards, or positions, is an easy thing. First, that the guards have their weapons in hand one against the other, and they do not touch each other, and they stand wary and still, one against the other, to see what the companion wants to do. And these are called positions, or guards, or first masters of the battle. And these wear a crown on their heads, because they are placed in a way to make great defence, which they wait for. And they are the beginning of this art, thus in the art of the weapon in which the said masters stand on guard. And it is as much to say position as guard. And guards are as much to say that the man guards and defends with it from the attacks of his enemy. And it is as much to say that position is the way of positioning himself, to offend his enemy without danger to himself. The other master that follows the 4 guards goes to show what follows from the guards, and goes to defend himself against another player with the blows that come from the 4 guards that are before. And this master also wears a crown, and is called second master. Also he is called remedy master, because he makes the remedy so that he will not be hit by the attack, or that he will not be injured in this art, that are the said positions or guards. And this second or remedy has some players below, which play the plays that can be played by the master that is before, so the remedy grabbing that cover or grip that makes the said remedy. And these players will wear a device under the knee, and these players will do all the plays of the remedy up to the point that another master is found that makes the counter to the remedy and to all his players. And because he makes the counter to the remedy and the counter to his players, he will wear the device of the remedy master and of his players, thus the crown on his head and the device under his knee. And this king is called the third master, and is called counter, because he will be counter to the other masters and counter to their plays. Also I say that in some places in the art is found the 4th master, thus the king that makes the counter to the 3rd king, thus the counter to the remedy. And this king is the 4th master, called 4th master, and he is called counter-counter, though few plays go beyond the 3rd master in the art. And if one goes so far, one goes with danger. And enough of this, I say. As we have spoken above about the guards of Abrazare, and of the 2nd master or remedy, and of his players, and of the 3rd master the counter to the 2nd master and his players, and of the 4th master that is called counter-counter, so as these masters and players are the basis of the art of wrestling in armor and without armor, so these masters and players are the basis of the art of the lance, with the lances and their guards, masters and players. And in the same way with the axe, and with the sword in one hand and in 2 hands, and in the same way with the dagger. So, in effect, these masters and players spoken of before with their insignia and devices are the basis of the whole art of arms on foot and on horseback, in armor and without armor, just as they are in the plays of wrestling. And this is just to say that there needs to be guards and masters in the other arts, and remedies and counters as in the art of wrestling, so that the book can be easily understood, just as the red text and the figures and the plays will show the whole art so well that all can be understood. Now we pay attention to the drawn figures and to their plays and to their words, which will show the truth of this. Folio 3, 4, and 5 are blank. And this second or remedy has some players below, which play the plays that can be played by the master that is before, so the remedy grabbing that cover or grip that makes the said remedy. And these players will wear a device under the knee, and these players will do all the plays of the remedy up to the point that another master is found that makes the counter to the remedy and to all his players. And because he makes the counter to the remedy and the counter to his players, he will wear the device of the remedy master and of his players, thus the crown on his head and the device under his knee. And this king is called the 3rd master, and is called counter, because he will be counter to the other masters and counter to their plays. Also I say that in some places in the art is found the 4th master, thus the king that makes the counter to the 3rd king, thus the counter to the remedy. And this king is the fourth master, called fourth master, and he is called counter-counter, though few plays go beyond the third master in the art. And if one goes so far, one goes with danger. And enough of this, I say. As we have spoken above about the guards of Abrazare, and of the second master or remedy, and of his players, and of the third master the counter to the second master and his players, and of the fourth master that is called counter-counter, so as these masters and players are the basis of the art of wrestling in armour and without armour, so these masters and players are the basis of the art of the lance, with the lances and their guards, masters and players. And in the same way with the axe and with the sword in one hand and in two hands, and in the same way with the dagger. So, in effect, these masters and players spoken of before with their insignia and devices are the basis of the whole art of arms on foot and on horseback, in armour and without armour, just as they are in the plays of wrestling. And this is just to say that there needs to be guards and masters in the other arts, and remedies and counters as in the art of wrestling, so that the book can be easily understood, just as the red text and the figures and the plays will show the whole art so well that all can be understood. Now we pay attention to the drawn figures and to their plays and to their words, which will show the truth of this.